Now we're confident with the radio altitude of the Blackhawk at the time of the collision that was 278 feet. But I want to caution, that does not mean at 8:30, the Blackhawk began traveling generally southbound after maneuvering near Laytonsville, Maryland. CVR audio from the Blackhawk indicated the instructor pilot was the pilot monitoring and transmitting on the radio, and the pilot was the pilot flying. At 8:33:41, the Blackhawk crew requested helicopter route 1 to 4 to Davison Army Airfield, which the tower controller approved. At 8:38:39, the Blackhawk reached the intersection of the DC Beltway and the Potomac River near Carteret, Maryland. After briefly turning westbound, the Blackhawk turned back to the east and began descending as it picked up helicopter route 1 over the Potomac River southeast toward downtown Washington, D.C. At 8:39:10, Potomac approach cleared the crew of the CRJ for the Mount Vernon Visual Runway 1 approach. At 8:40:46, the CRJ rolled out of a left turn established on the ILS localizer for runway 1 at approximately 4,000 feet pressure altitude, 170 knots, with landing gear up and flaps extended to 20 degrees. At 8:43:06, the CRJ crew made initial contact with DCA Tower. The tower controller then asked if the crew could switch to runway 33. The CRJ crew agreed to switch to runway 33. At 8:43:48, the Blackhawk was about 1.1 nautical miles west of the Key Bridge. The pilot flying indicated they were at 300 feet. The instructor pilot indicated they were at 400 feet. Neither pilot made a comment discussing an altitude discrepancy. At this time, we don't know why there was a discrepancy between the two. That's something that the investigative team is analyzing. At 8:44:27, as the Blackhawk approached the Key Bridge, the instructor pilot indicated the Blackhawk was at 300 feet, descending to 200 feet. Between 8:44:41 and 8:44:45, the CRJ crew selected 30 degrees of flaps and then 45 degrees of flaps. At 8:44:49, the CRJ landing gear were down and locked. The aircraft was fully configured for landing about 6.2 nautical miles south of the airport. At 8:45:27, the autopilot was disconnected, and the CRJ began a shallow right turn off the runway 1 localizer at a radio altitude of approximately 1,700 feet and an airspeed of 134 knots. This occurred about 5 nautical miles south of the airport. At 8:45:30, the Blackhawk passed over the Memorial Bridge. The instructor pilot told the pilot flying that they were at 300 feet and needed to descend. The pilot flying said they would descend to 200 feet. At 8:45:58, the Blackhawk then crossed over the Washington Tidal Basin and followed the Washington Channel consistent with helicopter route 1. It is now approximately 2 minutes before the collision. At 8:46:01, a radio transmission from the tower was audible on the CRJ CVR, informing the Blackhawk that traffic just south of the Wilson Bridge was a CRJ at 1,200 feet circling to runway 33. CVR data from the Blackhawk indicated that the portion of the transmission stating the CRJ was circling may not have been received by the Blackhawk crew. We hear the word circling in ATC communications, but we do not hear the word circling on the CVR of the Blackhawk. The recorders group is evaluating this right now. At 8:46:08, the Blackhawk crew responded. They had the traffic in sight and requested visual separation, which was approved by DCA Tower. At 8:46:29, the CRJ crew received a 1,000-foot automated call-out. At 8:46:47, DCA Tower cleared other jet traffic on runway 1 for immediate departure with no delay. At 8:47:27, or 32 seconds before impact, the Blackhawk passed the southern tip of Haines Point. A second later, the CRJ began a left roll to turn to final on runway 33. The CRJ was at a radio altitude of 516 feet and 133 knots. At 8:47:29, the CRJ crew received a 500-foot automated call-out. At 8:47:39, or 20 seconds before impact, a radio transmission from the tower was audible on both CVRs, asking the Blackhawk crew if the CRJ was in sight. Audible in the ATC radio transmission was a conflict alert in the background. At 8:47:40, the CRJ crew received an automated traffic advisory on the TCAS system stating traffic. TCAS is the Traffic Alert and Collision Avoidance System on the CRJ. At 8:47:42, or 17 seconds before impact, a radio transmission from the tower was audible on both CVRs, directing the Blackhawk to pass behind the CRJ. CVR data from the Blackhawk indicated that the portion of the transmission that stated "pass behind the" may not have been received by the Blackhawk crew. Transmission was stepped on by a 0.8-second mic key from the Blackhawk. The Blackhawk was keying the mic to communicate with ATC. In response, at 8:47:44, the Blackhawk crew indicated that traffic was in sight and requested visual separation, which was approved by DCA Tower. The instructor pilot then told the pilot flying they believed ATC was asking for the helicopter to move left toward the east bank of the Potomac. At 8:47:52, or 7 seconds before impact, the CRJ rolled out on final for runway 33. The CRJ was at a radio altitude of 344 feet, 143 knots. At 8:47:58, or 1 second before impact, the CRJ began to increase its pitch, reaching about 9 degrees nose up at the time of collision. FDR data show the CRJ elevators were deflected near their maximum nose-up travel. The last radio altitude recorded for the CRJ was 313 feet and was recorded 2 seconds prior to the collision. The CRJ pitch at this time was again 9 degrees nose up, and roll was 11 degrees left wing down. The CRJ was descending at 448 feet per minute. The radio altitude of the Blackhawk at the time of the collision was 278 feet and had been steady for the previous 5 seconds. The Blackhawk pitch at the time of the collision was about a half degree nose up with a left roll of 1.6 degrees. Now, examination of the wreckage will assist in determination of the exact angle of the collision.
So I came across this video and I thought it'd be kind of cool to share just an update because many of us have been waiting since this crash occurred. So this plane crash happened on January 29th, 2025, 9 days after Donald Trump's inauguration, and the world would focus on that, and this plane crash happened. I thought it was interesting listening to some of the breakdown as to what they've already been able to conclude from the information that they've gathered from the black boxes. You know, it talks about elevations and the altitudes that these people were at the time of the collision, but we still haven't really gotten a firm conclusion other than the fact that potentially there was something wrong with the equipment on the Blackhawk. One of the things that has come to light since Donald Trump has been in office is a lot of fraudulent spending, a lot of equipment and things, especially in our military, that are outdated. Things that should be new and improved or antiquated. And I'm glad that they're exposing a lot of the fraud and that they're doing things to try to correct these problems. A lot of our military equipment is outdated. I mean, I wouldn't doubt that a lot of the technology and the equipment on these helicopters and even some of our aircrafts is outdated. There are things that I believe, as many of you do watching this, that there are things that could have been done to have prevented this from occurring. There's a lot of speculation out there. I have a video that I did, and I've probably gotten over 10,000 comments from, and almost everybody's opinion is different as far as what they think occurred. So hopefully this video brings a little more light to it. It sounds like they're still investigating and they're trying to come up with an idea to a final outcome, which I believe will be coming very shortly. So you figure January 29th, today is Valentine's Day. So you're talking 16 days ago. Man, it seems like it was so much longer than that this plane crashed. And again, my heart goes out to the families who I know are still grieving the loss of their loved ones. You know, children, husbands, wives, fathers, mothers. It's heartbreaking. And again, I'm just ready to see change, and not only this area, but in a lot of areas. So I love you guys, and I will update you as soon as I have more information. Take care.